On the other side of humanity's coin, we have Donald Trump Jr., who was in court again this morning. There he is. You hear the protesters chanting, crime family, and that is basically what these people are, a crime.
I'm not widely known for being a sentimental guy. Anyone who's seen me on social media knows I'm far more likely to crack a joke or get myself in trouble for posting some grossly inappropriate memes than I am to shed.
Jimmy Kimmel didn't simply fire a punchline and walk away. He picked up a sarcasm-wrapped grenade, hurled it directly at Donald Trump Jr., and stood there watching the political internet shatter in real time. What started as an ordinary monologue suddenly became a raging inferno. And somewhere in the distance, you could almost hear the uncomfortable silence breaking inside.
You know, I mentioned last night Trump was the guest of honor at a launch event for Elon Musk's new rocket, and he wasn't the only Donald Trump. Don Jr. was there, and he's been getting some unwanted attention for this.
No, not at all. I think Jimmy Kimmel's terrible. You know what suspended him? His talent. You know what else is really what? Take a look at this guy, his ratings. That's what got Jimmy Kimmel out. He was terrible. And didn't he lose? I saw a report where ABC lost millions.
Before we go any further, smash that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you cannot afford to miss this one. Here's the thing. When Jimmy Kimmel sharpens his wit, he doesn't swing wildly. He waits, he watches. Then he locks onto a target guaranteed to cause maximum chaos. This time that target was Donald Trump Jr., Trump's self-declared Twitter heir. Podcast mic in hand, permanent scowl on face. Convinced he owns the culture wars.
Crime family, the Gambozos, if you will, and Don Jr., he's so embarrassing. He's on the stand, he's testifying in this $250 million fraud trial, and he has to compliment. He said his father is an artist with real estate. Yeah, he's an artist with, he's Vincent Van Gogh to jail with real estate. Is what he is. He also boasted that his dad is the father of...
Because poking the Trump brand means you're not just nudging a personality. You're rattling an entire dynasty that treats every criticism like a bloodbath. And nobody carries that instinct more fiercely than Donald Trump himself.
But it looks like it was some party. One of these presidents is wearing a mask. I'm not sure which one. Another guest at the party dressed up as Hunter Biden and brought a blow-up doll, which I'm sure Rudy Giuliani ended up going home with. And while Don Jr. was in New York preparing to testify in court, his fiancée Kimberly was at the party dressed up as Trump's constituent, Snow White. Don Jr. was not at Daddy Donald's last night. The prodigal son was being grilled as part of the $250 million case against their...
Late-night comedy has always danced with politics. It flirts with it. It teases it. Sometimes it hits it square in the jaw, and Kimmel has never pretended otherwise. Over the years, his monologues became political pressure valves, slicing through policy disasters and personality flaws alike. His crowd expects it. They show up hungry for it. The formula never changes. Build up, twist, pause, explosion...
Again in slow motion, he goes to the pocket, he fishes around, and... well, let's not jump to conclusion. Maybe he's got some fun dip in there, you know? Maybe his veneers were hurting and he needed a little dollop of Sensodyne. Whatever it was, it didn't stop DJ TJ from posting another super cool TikTok video from inside a rocket that unfortunately did not...
But something felt sharper this time, because Don Jr. isn't some forgotten political footnote who quietly disappears. He feeds on conflict. He wraps himself in outrage like it's a business deal. Social media is his battlefield. Cable news, his training camp. So when Kimmel took aim, it wasn't comedy. It was a trap. And Don Jr. walked straight into it.
His tiny soprano. I wonder what's going through his head right now.
I should have worn makeup.
Oh, yeah, good one. Here's the thing about Don Jr. What he lacks in intelligence, he also lacks in charisma. So, and as with all cases involving the family Trump, DJ TJ was sworn in on an upside-down Bible. He will finish his testimony tomorrow, and then Eric will testify, and then Trump will claim he's never met either one.
On the surface, this looked like your typical celebrity versus political figure showdown. A late-night host throws a punch, A political name punches back. Headlines flash. Everyone moves on. Except that's not what happened here. Because what Kimmel actually targeted wasn't just a personality quirk or a trending moment, he stabbed straight at the contradiction that shadows Don Jr. everywhere. The image of a fearless, free speech warrior who somehow crumbles at every punchline. The irony practically wrote itself. And Kimmel, sharp as ever, let it breathe. No screaming, no dramatics. Just a mirror held up and the reflection did the damage. That's when the temperature spiked. Don Jr.'s reaction wasn't calm. It wasn't dismissive. It was raw. Social feeds exploded. Loyalists charged forward. Critics swarmed from every direction. Within hours, what started as a comedy monologue had transformed into a full-scale culture collision. Not just entertainer versus commentator, but Hollywood versus MAGA, satire versus blind loyalty, smirk versus fury. And when word spread that Don Jr. was genuinely rattled by Kimmel's jab, everything shifted. This wasn't a roast anymore. It was about legacy, loyalty, and protecting the brand at all costs.
Maybe someone put a gym in a building somewhere, but no one did it at the scale of my father. He's saying that his father, the father of the hotel gym, is a guy who's never stepped inside one, okay? The amount of ass kissing in this trial is insane. DJ TJ, of course, denies any and all wrongdoing and is instead going with the "our accountants did it" defense.
I'm not supposed to rely on a big five accounting firm, like one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. I can pay them millions of dollars. I rely on them to do accounting, but I'm supposed to know more than that.
And honestly, the Trump brand was never built for silence. Kimmel naturally dove straight into the mayhem. That's his fuel. The more explosive the reaction, the richer the comedy gold. You could almost watch his mind working in real time. Every rage-fueled tweet became fresh ammunition. Every furious clapback became a brand new setup. The louder the noise, the deadlier the punchline. But underneath all the laughter, something deeper is brewing. This isn't simply two public figures throwing punches at each other. This is the full collision of entertainment and politics in a world where that boundary has completely dissolved. Late-night hosts now control narratives, political dynasties now operate like media empires, and a single joke can detonate into a week-long headline storm. Kimmel understands this world completely. He was built for it. Don Jr. thrives in it too, just from the opposite corner. And when Trump himself senses disrespect, the temperature doesn't just rise, it boils. Whether through statements, rally energy, or social media soldiers, his outrage becomes a signal. His base locks in. The volume cranks up. The stakes multiply. Suddenly, one late-night punchline transforms into a full proxy war between red hats and Hollywood writers' rooms.
Actually inside a Falcon Heavy rocket right now. Does not get cooler than this. Each one of these engines has the equivalent of 4 747 engines, each one. And there's dozens of them in these rockets. But each one of these guys, 4 747 engines.
He's fine, everybody. There's nothing to worry about at all. Where's Hunter?
But here's the part nobody should overlook. Kimmel isn't walking into this blindfolded. He's been through the political firestorm before. Boycotts, angry hashtags, outrage cycles. He's survived every single wave, and the ratings never flinched. The pattern is almost clockwork. Backlash surges, media amplifies, audience locks in tighter. So when Don Jr. fired back and Trump reportedly seethed, the outcome wasn't quiet, it was deafening. Clips spread like wildfire. Commentary erupted everywhere. Analysts argued whether late-night hosts should avoid politics entirely, as if that door hadn't been permanently kicked open years ago. Trump supporters called it elitist bullying. Kimmel fans called it truth, wrapped in humor. Two completely different Americas. One single punchline, and somewhere between them, millions of viewers consuming the chaos like it's the season finale of a reality show nobody chose, but nobody can stop watching. What makes this collision genuinely gripping isn't the personalities, it's the symbolism. Every monologue becomes potential campaign material. Every tweet becomes a battle flag. Every laugh line risks igniting a political bonfire. And that's precisely why this moment cuts deep. It exposes how razor-thin the wall is between entertainment and raw power. How fast comedy curdles into conflict. How one joke about Don Jr. can travel all the way to a president's desk.
There's even some worry Don Jr. could be tried as an adult in this one. Trump was not there in person to support his sons. He had a Halloween party to host. But he did lash out at the judge on Truth Social. He wrote, "There's no victim except me. Leave my children alone, Engoron. You are a disgrace to the legal profession." That's right. Leave my children alone. It's easy. I've done it their whole lives. But I will say one thing you do have to hand to the Trump.
The bitter irony, everyone profits. Kimmel gains relevance. Don Jr. harvests attention. Trump collects fresh ammunition to fire up his base. The outrage machine keeps spinning, powered by algorithms and crowd energy. But the real question was never about who came out ahead. It's about what this entire spectacle reveals. When a comedian's opening monologue triggers political fury at the highest levels, that tells you everything. It tells you image protection is now a survival instinct. That mockery feels like a direct assault. That humor isn't innocent anymore. It's a loaded weapon. And Kimmel knows exactly how to pull the trigger. He never screamed. He never campaigned. He simply joked. But in today's climate, that's more than enough. Don Jr. reacted exactly how he always does. Full speed, zero breaks. And somewhere tonight, Kimmel is quietly flipping through his cards, grinning, fully aware that louder outrage means longer spotlight. Meanwhile, inside Trump world, the frustration quietly simmers. The loyalty hardens like concrete, and the next rally punchline practically writes itself. Comedy versus dynasty. Sarcasm versus surname. A single joke that refused to stay contained. Because in modern America, the most explosive political battles don't always ignite on the Senate floor. Sometimes they detonate under studio lights behind a desk, with one perfectly aimed punchline. Nat.
I mean, and he's not the only one. The other sniveling MAGA turd who has a weird twist on our president's name is Don Jr.
Check this out. Joe Biden, 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 secretly flying. Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. Joe Biden, 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 Joe Biden.
And that's the part everyone quietly avoids saying out loud. The second a late-night desk transforms into a political launch pad, you're no longer watching entertainment. You're watching influence operate in real time. You're watching narratives twist, audiences fracture, and oversized egos crash into each other at 11:35 p.m. The Kimmel and Don Jr. collision didn't detonate over one single joke. It detonated because it struck a nerve that's been bleeding for years. Hollywood versus MAGA, blue state humor versus red state pride. The feeling that every laugh from one side lands like a deliberate slap to the other? And when that slap grazes the Trump family name, it stops being comedy entirely. It becomes warfare. Don Jr. was never some quiet background figure floating in his father's shadow. He is the counterattack. He is the response. And reaction is ratings. The brilliance of Kimmel's strategy is that he never has to overdo it. He lets the target self-destruct. One smirk, one perfectly timed eyebrow raise, and suddenly the internet erupts. Social posts multiply. Supporters flood comment sections like a digital invasion. Cable panels spend hours dissecting a single joke like it's nuclear policy. And the louder the fury grows, the more it validates everything Kimmel originally said. That's the trap. That's the loop.
Father of the hotel GM is a guy who's never stepped inside one, okay? The amount of ass kissing in this trial is insane. DJ TJ, of course, denies any and all wrongdoing and is instead going with the "our accountants did it" defense.
I'm not supposed to rely on a big five accounting firm, like one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. I can pay them millions of dollars. I rely on them to do accounting, but I'm supposed to know more than them. By this logic, insurance companies are going to start suing patients for listening to their doctors. Right? Do you understand? Like, am I supposed to know more? Oh, Don Jr. doesn't know anything about it. I'm not an accountant. I'm a business guy.
I'm a business guy who had his elbows soldered together, and now I move my arms like a Muppet all the time. And with all the complaining the Trumps do about this trial playing out in the media, you could barely even turn the channel without seeing their lawyer doing an interview with somebody.
What have they been asking the kids? And tell me how they fit into all of this.
They don't fit into all of this. What have they been asking the kids? It's very simple. They'll ask the kids, did you give a value to somebody? Did you do something? And everybody said resoundingly no. And these kids did nothing wrong. They should not be in this case. Ivanka's already out of the case. The boys should not be in the case.
That's right. They're just boys. They're kids. Eric has a book report due this weekend. They're both still wearing pull-ups. They're on trial.
But the deepest tension never really lived with Don Jr. It lived one floor above him. Because when you take a swing at the son, you're grazing the father. And Donald Trump has never once treated ridicule as harmless background noise. For Trump, mockery isn't comedy. It's a direct challenge to his authority, a threat to his dominance. And when that mockery gets broadcast to millions on national television, ignoring it simply isn't an option. Picture that dynamic for a moment. A former president who constructed an entire political empire on commanding every room, now sitting somewhere watching a comedian quietly dismantle his family's image with nothing but sharp words and a studio audience, and Kimmel wasn't hunting for silence. He was hunting for an echo. And the echo arrived instantly. Trump loyalists framed the entire episode as elitist condescension. Another coastal entertainer taking lazy shots at a conservative voice, proof that Hollywood simply cannot help itself. But Kimmel's supporters saw something completely different. A comedian doing exactly what comedy exists to do. Puncturing power, challenging legacy, holding influence accountable with humor. Both camps convinced they were defending something far greater than a punchline.
They're running a fake university or a phony charitable organization or just burying their mother on a golf course. Seen here. They are a unified front. Trump's lawyers are reportedly having trouble making sure they can even go to all of his trials because there are so many of them. There are court dates today in both New York and Florida. Never has a team of attorneys racked up more billable hours that they will not ever get paid for than this group.
And that's precisely what made this entire episode so explosive, because this was never really about Don Jr.'s personality alone. It was about everything he represents. A movement, a brand, a continuation of Trump-era politics that flatly refuses to quietly disappear. And when that movement feels mocked, it doesn't retreat. It charges. But here's the twist that makes this saga almost theatrical. Every time Trump world erupts in fury, it feeds exactly the narrative that they cannot absorb a joke. And every time Kimmel leans gleefully into that reaction, it deepens the perception that he's completely untouchable. It's a feedback loop perfectly engineered for modern media consumption. The result? A clash that feels monumentally larger than it probably deserves. But that's the nature of politics colliding with entertainment in 2026. Everything gets amplified. Everything turns personal. Everything becomes a proxy battle for something far deeper underneath. Kimmel represents a world that treats satire as resistance. Don Jr. represents a world that treats media criticism as frontline cultural warfare. And Trump remains the gravitational force pulling every single piece into his orbit. What makes this genuinely fascinating is how utterly predictable it feels, yet how completely impossible it is to ignore. Comedian jabs. Trump fires back. Headlines explode. Social media melts. Analysts debate. Then one fresh spark reignites everything all over again. Almost formulaic. Almost Nat Chain.
Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. Joe Biden, 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 Joe Biden has dementia.
That's right. He's the one with the dementia. That's right. It's like he got bitten by a radioactive morning zoo or something. Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. Here in LA, school is out for the summer.
But the audience never stops watching, because underneath all the sarcasm and fury lives something undeniably compelling. Ego, legacy, the burning question of who actually controls the narrative in an era where everybody owns a platform, and Kimmel, settled behind that desk, understands the weight of that completely. He isn't running for office. He isn't drafting legislation, but he is sculpting perception. He is quietly shaping how millions of people see political figures. A perfectly timed joke can define a personality in ways that outlast any policy speech ever written. For Don Jr., that's genuinely dangerous ground. Image is the entire foundation. Strength, dominance, confidence, these are the load-bearing pillars of the Trump brand. Humor that chips at those pillars doesn't just sting, it erodes. An erosion, given enough time, reshapes everything. So Trump's fury makes complete sense. It's protective instinct. It's reactive armor. It's brand defense operating at maximum volume. But the irony cuts deep. The more this feud escalates, the more everybody profits from it. Because in modern America, nothing exists as just one thing. A joke is never simply a joke. A reaction is never simply a reaction. Everything carries layers of meaning, intention, and interpretation stacked beneath the surface. Now,
there's Sleepy Don taking it all in. And in fairness, that's as close as he gets to being able to sleep with his wife, so he took the opportunity. This is really good. This almost makes me feel bad for him, almost. So it's his birthday, and while there's no good reason for us to be paying to celebrate it, you'd think his wife might celebrate it, right? They're married. And, well, watch this. Look at his hand. He makes a little move to lock pinkies, and nope.
Jan, so the story rolls forward. Kimmel will almost certainly revisit the backlash, squeezing every last laugh from the wreckage. Don Jr. will likely dig deeper, painting himself as the permanent target of establishment ridicule. Trump will probably fold it into rally fuel, wielding it as fresh evidence that the cultural war is nowhere near finished. And the audience will do exactly what they always do, choose their corner and dig in. What launched as a simple late-night jab has hardened into a portrait of exactly where we are. Comedy and politics permanently fused, every word capable of triggering a storm, fury traveling faster than truth ever could. And as long as that remains reality, studio desks will keep serving as battlegrounds, not with weapons or gavels, but with punchlines sharp enough to rattle a former president and keep an entire nation breathlessly watching.